Somebody was going to...
Thank you so much. Okay, so it really is, and I'm not saying this just because, but I've heard about these European Youth Work Conventions for pretty much the whole time that I've been involved in the youth sector. And to be here with you today, it really is such a huge, huge honor. Thank you so much for having us. And a massive thank you to the organizers for pulling all of this together, for bringing all of us together. The National Youth Agency of Malta, and as I'm working on my Maltese, Agencia Zaza. I butchered that a bit, but thank you. The European Union Programme Agency for Malta, the Council of Europe, European Union Youth Partnership for hosting all of us here. Another big round of applause for all of them, please. And as we close this convention, I want to thank all of you, not only for the fact that you were here, but for the passion and for the energy that you've put into these 2 days, even when it was hard, even when you could hear each other between the sessions, and maybe you didn't get that much sunlight over the past 2 days, but you did it. You put in the work, you put in the effort, and we came to the end of it. This convention, as you maybe have noticed or maybe have read about, has taken place in a former hospital, which I think is a very interesting metaphor, because the role of a hospital is to provide care, to provide support, and sometimes, in extreme cases, also to bring patients back to life. What we know is that youth work is the cornerstone of a resilient society. And over the past few days, you've not only spoken about what youth work is, but what it must become. Maybe you didn't agree on everything, but boy oh boy, conversations did you have. You've shown once again that from the very rural areas of Europe to the big cities, from the north to south, from east to west, youth work doesn't only exist, but it perseveres, it grows, it is resilient, it becomes better. And in this former hospital, you just brought new life into youth work all across our continent, and for that, I thank you. The thing about youth work is that it's not just a series of programs or a series of events or workshops. It is a practice that has empowered and will keep empowering the lives of millions of young people all across Europe, that protects young people, that educates young people, that organizes young people. And it gives young people the space not only to grow, but to lead. And we've seen this for so long, from Ghent to Brussels to Bonn to online to here. All of these previous youth work conventions have paved the way for us to be here today. And this fourth convention comes at an absolutely critical moment. A moment where across Europe, young people are facing growing barriers to participation. Young people are facing shrinking civic spaces. But what these 2 days have reminded us of is the fact that youth work is one of the really, truly youth-centered infrastructures that are available to young people. Youth work is the one thing that we have that is just about us. It's where we as young people find support, it's where we build confidence, and where we claim our rights. And it's not something that is just done for us as young people. It's something that we build together, that we stem from our rights. So we are, as we know, the beneficiaries of youth work. I myself am a very happy beneficiary of youth work for almost 8 years now. But we're also a large portion of the practitioners. And this is why at the European Youth Forum, we constantly advocate for a youth-led nature of youth work done by youth organizations all across Europe. Again, youth work is the cornerstone of a resilient society, but we're not there yet. It remains undervalued, underfunded, sometimes as an annex of maybe other parts of different types of outreach or community work. And it does need structural change. And I know, and I was listening with so much interest to the panel, hearing that we need to maybe stop talking about recognition. I respectfully disagree. Because I think that if we stop talking about recognition, if we stop talking about the impact that our work has in the youth work community, we risk losing the legitimacy, and we risk losing the showcase that we have on the impact that youth work has on young people's lives. So I like to believe that the roadmap that comes out of this convention will point us towards a more solution-driven oriented future of youth work. It's true that we have the ministerial conference coming up in October, and we count on all of you from the national level, from the European level, on all of us that will be, well, actually in this room, because I understood, I don't know if that was secret or not, but I understood it will be around here as well. So on this island, when in October ministers will come together and will speak about matters that concern young people across the continent, all of us have a role in bringing these outputs and these outcomes there. Some of the main discussions involved, of course, the topic of professional versus volunteer-led youth work. And here I would maybe draw your attention a bit to the role that young people play within the community of practice when it comes to developing and sharing practices and standards and so on. We need to strengthen and to reconfirm our commitment to the fact that young people are involved in the youth work community of practice, not only as beneficiaries, but also as defining actors of the policies, of the frameworks that underpin and really bring together youth work across the entire continent. In the spirit of co-creation, which I know has come up a lot over the past 2 days, how many of you are youth workers or have been youth workers at the local level? Okay. Thank you for the openness and the honesty. So we know oftentimes youth work happens at the local level. For that, we need increased funding for local youth organizations, for local youth councils, for local youth spaces. That comes not only from the local governments, but also from regional and from national governments. So if that's who you're representing around here, open your ears and take notes. We need more money. Because spaces for young people, including youth work spaces, both physical and in terms of people that are available to deliver youth work, they don't just appear. They have to be intentional. They have to be intentionally created, intentionally supported, intentionally nurtured. But youth work doesn't only happen at the local level. How many of you here have done youth work at the European level? Thank you, again, for the openness and the honesty. See, that's the thing about European level youth work. It's not just about this. This is fantastic. We get so much information, so much outputs. We know what we need, but this is not just about policy and strategy. European youth work, in an era where Euroscepticism is on the rise, we cannot afford to ignore, to pay less attention to youth work done by European platforms, by European organizations, which foster a sense of European identity, of European belonging, for which, as we've come to see recently, we have a great need. Professional youth work. It's about fair working conditions and fair pay for professional youth workers, but it's mainly about how we achieve a higher quality of youth work by creating standards, by creating standards for skills and competencies for professional youth workers, regardless of whether or not they are volunteers. How can we make sure that this one space that's left, that belongs only to young people, is a quality space, is a meaningful space, is a relevant space? For funding, we heard so much about it, but it's true, it's sometimes a dirty word, but it shouldn't be. We need money. We need sustainable funding for both EU and non-EU member states. Youth work doesn't only happen within the bounds of the European Union, and I think we need to speak about and acknowledge that and remember that. And I'll close with this one thing. The one thing that we cannot afford to be right now is stone deaf. Not now. It was a rainy November night in 2017 when I went to the first workshop of my students' council. And that was the first contact that I ever had with a youth organization. It was the first contact that I ever had with a youth workspace. And at that point, we talked about quality education. We talked about the importance of investing more money into education and having more students participating in decision-making processes. And all of these, they are still important topics today. But we cannot close our eyes to the fact that young people all across our continent, young people very close to our continent, are facing and have been facing existential issues that we were never equipped to deal with in the first place in the youth work field. Whether we're talking about armed conflicts, in Ukraine, where youth work has changed significantly to have a trauma-based approach to support young people as they go through one of the toughest moments in the history of their country. When we speak, of course, about the conflicts that happen around the world and how young people respond to that, not as a way of instrumentalizing youth work, but equipping young people with the values, with the knowledge and the skills that they need to be able to traverse these moments. In the pandemic, how many of you did online youth work in the pandemic? How many of you had done online youth work before the pandemic? For the record, there are less hands in the second one, just to make it clear. So in the pandemic, we changed because we had to. The question I would leave with you maybe is, why do we always have to be pushed in a corner where we have no choice before we choose to change? So, in a moment where we learn the difference between noise and silence, let us remember how important it is not to stay silent about anything, not here, not in this space, not in this community, but let us also remember that the noise we make should be good noise, should be meaningful noise. Only this way can we make sure that this noise is heard, and this, trust me, we can only do together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raresh, for that very passionate contribution. Now, please welcome Matjaž Gruden, Director for Democracy at the Council of Europe, a steadfast supporter of youth participation and inclusion in democratic life.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'll try to smile a little bit more, so this is not going to be the only lasting impression of me that will haunt you for the rest of the day, if not the rest of your lives. The first point is just to reassure you that there will be no gymnastics, acrobatics, any kind of physical exercise required from you during my short intervention. I cannot promise you it won't be mentally exhausting, but at least it will be physically relaxing. It may even put you to sleep. I think as one of the representatives of the Council of Europe here in this final ceremony, together with Ambassador on behalf of the Presidency of the Committee of Ministers, there are essentially two things that are expected from me. The first one is to express gratitude, to say thank you to a lot of people, echo what Raresh already done. I'll start just saying how great it is to be here in Malta. I think people mentioned yesterday how the third convention was taking place in Bonn. I don't think that's true. I have very strong personal recollection that, as far as I'm concerned, the third convention was taking place in my spare bedroom. So it's really great to be here in sunny Malta. So, first of all, the thank yous. Thank you to Malta. Thank you to the Maltese Presidency of the Committee of Ministers, represented here by Ambassador Kamiri Vetiger, for prioritizing and giving so much support, so much attention to young people throughout the presidency, throughout the program of the presidency, which has just started. I'd also like to thank the Maltese authorities and the Agenția Zaza for all the hard work that made this convention such a success, and among them a special thank you to our brilliant Miriam for everything she does. For everything she does here in Malta and for everything she does in Strasbourg as the chair of the steering committee, and especially for that fantastic keynote speech you delivered yesterday. I think you actually set a new golden standard. All the future attempts at keynote speaking will be measured against the Miriam Teuma scale. Really, I was outstanding. I would also like to thank the European Union, represented here by the Commissioner for Intergenerational Fairness, Youth, Culture and Sport, Mr. Glen Micallef, for our cooperation and for the European Union's continued support and engagement in our long-standing partnership in support of young people, in support of youth work. My deep appreciation also goes to my colleagues in the Council of Europe, who have been also working very hard to prepare for this convention, and who will work even harder to make sure that the outcomes, results of your discussion will then leave a mark after the convention is over. And finally, thank you to all of you, not just for being here, but for everything you've done before you came to Malta, and for everything you will do afterwards, hopefully with fresh ideas and fresh energy that you have picked up over the last 2 days. Now the second task, it's a little bit tricky. I feel embarrassed again and again when I have this feeling that I'm parachuted to some place, usually at some last moment. Not this time. I was here from first minute because I'm really interested in this subject. And then I'm expected to explain to a room full of people who know about a subject much more than I do what this subject is all about. You know, like, let me tell you 2 or 3 things about youth work. I'm not going to do that. Not that I couldn't. I mean, I come from the Balkans, you know, we have something which is called semi-expertise. It's when you, semi-expertise is when you overhear a conversation in a public transport in the morning, and then you give a keynote speech on that subject in the evening. I know semi-expertise exists in many cultures, but guys, we elevated it into an art form. But still, I will not give you a lecture about youth work. Rather, I want to say a few words why youth work is considered so important from the perspective of the efforts to defend our democracies, to respond to all the difficulties and problems and challenges, recognizing, as Marco said, it's not a magical cure, but it's an important cure, I think, for many of the problems we have. Why youth work is so important in the efforts to make our democracies more resilient. A few days ago, I was invited to a European school in Strasbourg as a parent, not as a director, where many of my colleagues have their children as students, and it was a conference organized by history teachers entitled Transitions to Democracy. So we came from different countries, me from Slovenia, from Albania, from Romania, basically invited to speak about our own personal memories, testimonies from the times when our countries transited to democracy. And, you know, there were a lot of very, I think, very interesting, very sincere, genuine testimonies from those parents, from colleagues. And they talked about their struggles and sacrifices. And then, one after another, they said to the students that they should feel lucky and grateful because they live in democracies. So I took a little bit of different take on the things. I really know, I mean, one of my superpowers is to be annoying and irritating with people who are kind to me. So I first picked a fight with the history professors about the title, because I said I don't think we can talk about transitions to democracy in today's world. I think if at all we would talk about it, we should talk about the transitions from democracy or away from democracy. And even more importantly, I turned to the students and said, don't you dare being grateful. And simply because I think that, you know, when you compare, and I was only speaking for myself, it was perhaps not the same thing being young in Yugoslavia at the time or in Romania or Albania. I recognize there were differences. But still, but even in that situation, when it was difficult, when we lived in a country that was not free, definitely not free, we had a huge advantage. There has never, ever been a doubt, when I was the age of those students in that room, that the future will be better. That things will change, that they will change for the better, and that we are a part of that change. We didn't feel powerless, we felt powerful. And that conviction and that belief and that certainty and that sense of power is something that I think the young people today cannot claim to the same extent, to put it mildly. Even a group of privileged young people like the one in the European school. So I said to them, don't be grateful, be impatient, be critical like hell, at which point the principal started to sort of agitate himself. You have the right to be angry. Just make sure what you do with your anger and with your impatience. Don't let anyone ever manipulate or instrumentalize your anger or your impatience, because they will ultimately do that, use that against you and against your freedoms and against your rights. Instead, use that anger, use that impatience to demand change, to be the change, to be powerful. And at that point, when I was really getting myself excited, there was a young girl, she raised her hand and she said, how? So I said there are many ways in which we can shape that change and be part of that change, with what we do and what we don't do, with what we say and what we don't say, how we act with regard to others, but also and especially through engagement and participation. And that's where we come to youth work, because youth work is where the place, the situation, where young people have that opportunity, have the occasion and motivation and support to engage with others, to gain confidence, as Alice said, about themselves, and confidence about others, and confidence about democracy. So it's really extremely, extremely important, because youth work works for young people. But I disagree with you, Raj. I don't think it's only about you. I think really youth work is about much, I'm not going to say much more because young people are very important. It actually is something that is crucially important for the society as a whole. Because it is about young people. I also wanted to mention a youth center that, we had so many examples of these fantastic experiences, seeing how youth work works in practice. The one on the occasion of our recent visit to Lviv, together with Radoš and the Commissioner, the urban camp center where the young people passionate about street sports came together. They actually came from Kharkiv on the front line, and they converted a derelict cultural center into a fantastic place where they use their passion, street sport, to accommodate internally displaced families, to organize activities for young people in Lviv, to organize 10 days visits by young people, kids from the frontier areas, so they can get some normalcy, some treatment, some sense of distraction that can help them with their mental health. So I think, in those dramatic circumstances, you see how youth work can be powerful, and it really works. So I think I've been already a little bit too long. I'll bring this close to the end, but I just want to say that from that perspective of importance of youth work for democracy, the youth work can only deliver, youth work only works if we make it work. And I think it's been said again, and I will say it as well. That means investing in it. It means investing money, and not just money. Youth work that works requires legal and institutional frameworks, stable funding, political recognition. And when those elements in place, youth work can, I think, move mountains. It can transform anger into action, frustration into engagement, and powerlessness into empowerment. This is how we build stronger democracies, by working with young people, for young people, but ultimately for us all. The Secretary General's new democratic pact, which is priority number one, has for the overall objective to make our democracy stronger, more resilient. And the path it identified towards that objective is to restore confidence. including and especially by young people. And when we look at it, of course, again we see why youth work is and must be and will be at the center of that effort. The results of this conference will be presented to the ministerial session of the ministers responsible for youth here in Malta in October. They will be discussed by the Joint Council on Youth at their next meeting in November. We are in talks with our colleagues and partners in the European and European Commission to explore ways in which we could further expand, reinforce our cooperation in supporting youth work. In short, we are really here for the long haul. Now, I had a little personal anecdote prepared to show you something about my credentials. I do actually have experience with youth work, but I think I've been too long. Later on in the terrace, if you're really interested, I can share it with you. I think it's worth it, personally. But I'll just say this at the end. We must support youth work. I think we must make it better known. I think that is one of the issues that simply it does not have the recognition of importance outside the circles of people who are actually involved in it. And that is hampering its impact. So we need to work on it, making it famous. And it's worth it because youth work works, as I said. It works on all the important things and sometimes even some rather unexpected ones, which I can reveal to you later on. It really works. And it is so positively fluffy, as Alice put it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Matjaž. Thank you for reminding us that probably one of the superpowers of youth work is to deal with extremely important topics, also with irony and self-irony. I appreciate that personally, but I think it's something that we all share and cherish. Next guest, we're calling on stage Her Excellency Ambassador Francesca Camilleri Vettinger, the permanent representative of Malta to the Council of Europe.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a great pleasure to be here with you today. Honourable Minister, Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, EU Commissioner, esteemed speakers, distinguished participants. Over these past days, Valletta has clearly been more than a beautiful meeting point. It has been a crossroad of ideas, of identities, of voices, of experience shared. Here in the heart of the Mediterranean, you have not only debated policy or exchanged practices, you have taken meaningful steps towards a shared European youth work strategy, one that listens, one that acts, and above all, one that accelerates. I was following all your updates from Strasbourg, and I could sense already at a distance and behind the screen, and I can now confirm it that I'm here, that the energy that has driven your dialogue over the past days has been authentic, has been inspiring, has been contagious. This convention is a reminder that youth work is not theoretical. It is deeply practical. It happens in real communities and in often difficult circumstances, yet it builds resilience, inclusion, and agency. It's the bridge between potential and opportunity, between dreams and the tools needed to pursue them. Youth workers, you create safe spaces where identities form, where ideas grow, where voices are made stronger and leadership takes root. And that is why Malta is really proud to lead by example. Our commitment is visible not just in this convention, but in our institutions, our people, and the trust that is placed in young people to lead and to make a difference. We have with us the youngest EU Commissioner here today. In Strasbourg, I'm proud to say that I'm the youngest permanent representative from 46 permanent representatives in the Committee of Ministers. My team of the permanent representation is made up of incredibly talented persons that are either my age, that's 34, and much younger to early 20s, and all competent and very dedicated professionals. At the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, the youngest head of delegation, surprise, surprise, hails from Malta. And these are not coincidences. Because Malta does not just speak about empowering youth, it actively does it. We have incredible leaders, as I'm sure you've witnessed, in this sector. And of course, one of them is Miriam Toma, who has been a trailblazer and a source of inspiration. We trust young people with real responsibility, as we believe in their abilities, in their ideas, their energy, their passion, and in turn, they prove us right. They show and enrich their respective fields with perspectives, fresh perspectives, innovation, passion, dedication, and purpose. And we want to inspire others to do the same, because young people are the present. They're not simply the future. And it is with this conviction that Malta will be convening the Specialized Conference of Ministers responsible for youth here in October, with the intention of empowering young people throughout the 46 member states of the Council of Europe to ensure that the youth perspective is effectively included in decision-making processes in all countries and also in the Council of Europe itself, in all the deliberations at all the different levels. And from Valletta to Strasbourg, from youth centres to parliaments, from policy frameworks to personal commitments, let us therefore ensure that the sound you've created here today, it doesn't fade into silence, but it grows louder and louder with concrete action. We have to break the silos and to lift the voluntary sector that so often carries this work on its shoulders. We have to invest, as was said also by previous speakers, in structures and resources, in people and recognition. And we must continue to fight for a Europe where youth work is not peripheral, but is central to democratic resilience and social cohesion. Because youth work is not a luxury. It's a necessity for a stronger and more just and resilient future. It is also necessary for the values we hold so dear at the Council of Europe, the values of human rights, democracy and rule of law, to be sustainable for future generations. So let's carry this momentum forward, not as a fleeting moment, but as a movement. And I want to end with thanking you all for your presence, for your passion, for your purpose and your impact. Because with or without the desired recognition, please remember that your impact is felt. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, for a very meaningful reflection and also support. Now let us welcome European Commissioner for Intergenerational Fairness, Youth, Culture and Sport, Glen Micallef, reminding us that youth work is key to shaping a future where generations thrive together. Hello. Good evening to you too.
So, good evening everyone, or good afternoon. Minister, Parliamentary Secretary, Ambassador. Wow, it feels so good to be back in the member state that I know best, and at this vibrant conference center, although it does not feel very good to be at the end of this inspiring speakers list this evening. I'll do the formalities first, and I'd like to start by thanking the Maltese government for its work in recognizing youth, but also on placing youth so high up in its priorities for the presidency of the Council of Europe, and in its work more generally, but also for recognizing that investments in youth are investments, strategic investments in our future. And I would also like to thank the Council of Europe for our long-standing cooperation in organizing this event, but also in our work more generally. So I have a couple of remarks and a couple of reflections here today. revolving mainly around three themes. The first is about the significance of youth work, the role of youth work. And I've had the privilege to hear the discussion earlier today about noise and silence. So I'd like to add some of my own reflections to this. When we speak about youth work, it's about youth workers, it's about political leaders, it's about policymakers, and it's about charting the future of our societies. And there I think we have one clear mission and one clear objective that we must pursue together. Raresh mentioned it quite eloquently when he said we have to empower youth to reach their full potential. And this, I think, should be at the core of our work. I think together we can have a strong effect in this respect, and we can be a force and a vision to shape future generations as well. This is something that we have to work together on in a true spirit of European solidarity. The good news is that here we do not start from scratch. We have young people who want to engage, that want to participate, and that want to work with us to build better. Fortunately, they still trust us to do the job with them. They trust us to give them hope and opportunity. And this is a trust that we have earned, but one we must not take for granted, and one we must honor by giving them a genuine voice and responsibility in our policy work. I think the starting point to this is by celebrating what youth work has delivered. In my time as European Commissioner, I've had the privilege to witness this firsthand and to witness the power of youth-led initiatives and youth work on people's lives. And I've seen so many inspiring stories. Matjaž mentioned the experience that we shared in Lviv, but there are so many more where young people have driven positive change in their societies and in their communities. And I want to mention here one example which I think will stay with me throughout this mandate. I don't know if there's anyone from Italy in this room, but I had the privilege in my first mission as European Commissioner to go to Naples, Rione Sanità. Anyone who is familiar with Naples would know that this area was effectively a no-go zone until recent times. However, thanks to youth workers, with volunteers and with youth organizations, along with the support and the trust of public authorities, this has been an area that's been turned around through the formation of a cooperative called the La Paranza Cooperative. And this is really one of the best showcases of how youth work can be a positive force. Through their work, this cooperative has transformed a number of historic buildings which were previously abandoned into cultural spaces. And in doing so, they not only preserved cultural heritage, but they also helped address societal issues through education. They created employment and community development. And this is now a revitalized neighborhood which is on the visit list of every tourist itinerary when they go to Naples. And then award-winning projects like these are just some of the examples that we have to showcase how volunteering and youth work can create opportunities and promote social cohesion that greatly benefits our societies more generally. My second point is about the effectiveness of our work, our joint efforts. And I just want to mention here that since the last conference on youth work, there has been a number of positive achievements, positive developments. You see it right there on the bottom left side of the screen, and I'll start with it because this is one of the fantastic flagship projects of our union, Erasmus+. Since 2020, the budget for Erasmus+ has doubled, as the EU flagship program for education, training and youth, as well as sport. And with it, the opportunities that we provide to organizations and youth workers, building a better future for young people. Through Erasmus Plus, we have been able to support more than 900 cooperation partnership projects, promoting quality, innovative youth work, and more than 400,000 youth workers to take part in mobility experiences, empowering them to team up and to share expertise. And as now the attention turns to the next MFF and the discussions around it, our commitment is crystal clear, that of strengthening Erasmus+. Because this continues to be a cornerstone of European youth policy, empowering youth to become more active citizens and agents of change, enabling youth to develop their skills, challenge perspectives, and contribute to our communities, building societal resilience and cohesion while doing so. And one example that you might recognize here is the Alliance of Youth Workers Associations. Back in 2020, this convention recommended the establishment of a coordinated platform at European level for youth work. And thanks to Erasmus+, this recommendation has now been realized. And through it, last year, 9 youth organizations from across Europe launched the Alliance of Youth Workers Associations. Today, it's supported by 14 national youth workers associations, advocating for stronger recognition and the development of youth work across Europe. And then, my dear colleagues, I want to mention the renewed commitment that this Commission has made so visible during this mandate on youth. Building on these very solid foundations, we are complementing our existing work with new efforts to empower youth to amplify their voices and unlock new possibilities. During the first 100 days of this new Commission, we met with young people as part of our series of youth policy dialogues, to gather their views on issues that are important in their daily lives and on issues that are important for our European continent. Their ideas and their concerns will guide the Commission's work in the years to come. And in the next 4 years, we will continue to repeat this exercise to make sure that young people's concerns remain at the heart of our work. This is just one of the tools that we are using to increase young people's voices in our work. And to me, this has been a truly positive and enlightening experience, one which I'm so grateful for because of the valuable insights that this has brought to my work, but also to the work of the Commission more broadly. What struck me the most is that young people still place a lot of hope in the European Union. They see us as part of the solution to the challenges that they face. And at the same time, these dialogues have confirmed that the issues that matter the most to them are the ones that we must reflect in our political work. And I must single out a few of those here today. First, peace and the work towards peace. This remains a fundamental concern for young people and one which we have to work towards through our work. And then there are issues like housing, mental health and mental well-being, and the quality of life as the top priorities for youth. And this reinforces our understanding of what young people need to thrive, and these dialogues must inform our work and empower young people. And finally, I want to conclude with an appeal to all of you who are here today to contribute to our work. Right now we are collecting your ideas on the next EU Youth Strategy, which is our guiding document steering the EU's efforts to empower young people as change makers in our society. Your active participation in this process is fundamental, And I know that some of you have also participated in a workshop at this convention on the design of this future strategy and shared many ideas. I look forward to discovering them and the proposals that you will make to build on our community's achievements. As part of your strategic vision and roadmap for youth work in Europe for the years ahead. Thank you for your tireless work, for your tireless efforts to empower youth in Europe, and for giving. Thank you.
Thank you, Glen.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your commitment and your support. And now, representing the host country, let's welcome once more Honorable Kit Azzopardi-Tanti, the Parliamentary Secretary for Youth Research and Innovation of Malta.
Thank you and good evening. After 2 full days of intense discussion, collaboration and reflection, I know we're all looking forward to a well-deserved break. So I promise to keep this brief, or at least as a politician can reasonably manage. Let me start by extending my deepest gratitude to the incredible teams at Aġenzija Żgħażagħ and EU PA. Our national agency for Erasmus+. Your hard work and commitment made this event a success from start to finish. While Malta may be one of the smaller members of the European family, I believe we've made a meaningful contribution this week, one that will resonate throughout the youth work sector across Europe. To our partners, the European Commission, the Council of Europe, the Youth Partnership, our national agencies and all other European stakeholders, thank you. Your continued dedication to youth work and the future of young people across our continent has been a driving force behind this convention. From the preliminary conclusions shared earlier by Alice, it's clear that this convention has delivered, both in vision and in substance. The final report, when complete, will only provide a practical framework for the future of European youth work, but also offer clear guidance on how to bring the framework to life. The next important step lies ahead: the presentation of this Convention's findings at the Council of Europe's Youth Ministers Conference, which Malta is proud to host this October during its presidency of the Council of Europe. Following that, the final report will be published and made widely available, reaching all corners of the European youth work community. But what happens next doesn't depend on one institution or one country. It depends on all of us: policymakers, national and local authorities, EU bodies, youth organizations, youth workers, researchers, and of course, young people themselves. We each have a role to play in taking the results of this convention forward, to embed them in our policies and to apply them in our practice and to champion them in our conversations about the future of youth in Europe. To all of you, over 500 participants from over 40 countries, thank you. Thank you for showing up with your energy, your expertise, your creativity and your commitment. This convention has been stronger, richer and more impactful because of your participation. I hope you enjoy your evening overlooking the Grand Harbour, and I wish each of you a safe journey home. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Azzopardi-Tanti, for your strong message of vision, trust and also support for youth work. It is now time to welcome our newly appointed Minister for European Funds and the Implementation of Electoral Programme, Honourable Dr. Stefan Zrinzo Azzopardi.
Taking the stage after my colleague Keith, I would like to make an announcement that not all members of Cabinet have Azzopardi in their surname. It just happened to be a coincidence. Commissioner, Permanent Representative, Parliamentary Secretary, dear participants, I am honoured to be here as newly appointed Minister for European Funds and finding such a numerous, well-attended crowd this evening, and thank you for being in Malta. Thank you for making this event so great. To be honest, 24 hours ago, I was not aware that I would be addressing you. And honestly, I feel I am honoured that my first speech following this appointment is this convention. To me, it augurs very well. But I must say that this is chapter 2 as responsible for EU funds, because in 2020 I was doing this job before, so they said we need someone with experience, let's send Stefan back to EU funds. 2020, when I started my mission being responsible for EU funds, was a very challenging year. In fact, previous speakers made reference to the pandemic. In fact, it was a time when the challenges were so great that even Europe and the way it structured the way forward, particularly in the new MFF, the realities that the pandemic brought about with it had a great influence of how funding would occur and what the priorities would be. And definitely, the key word was and still is resilience. Resilience supported by energy, supported by a clear sense of purpose. But definitely, following what has been discussed in these 2 days, there is a very important dimension: youth. Youth being the present, youth being the future, and the future is always forged as a result of the decisions that are taken today. So it is important, in my humble opinion, that tomorrow's leaders, who are also already leaders today, are full participants in how we forge our future. Definitely, over the past few days, you have witnessed something truly special. Voices united, ideas shared, and a community of passionate youth workers, decision makers, and young people determined to shape the future of youth policy in Europe. This convention, under the theme Youth Workers Accelerate, has been a pivotal platform. It allowed you and us not only to reflect on where we are, but decisively to set the course for where we want youth work in Europe to go. And that has been a very important step. Together you took stock of the progress made since the last convention in 2020, and I am proud to say that the landscape of European youth work is stronger, more connected, and more empowered than ever before. Our work would not be possible without this sustained commitment and investment of the European Union through Erasmus+ and the European Solidarity Corps. Through Erasmus+, youth worker mobility and cooperation projects have laid the foundation for a more recognised, better resourced and better connected youth work profession. But yes, as a prior speaker said, the more money there is, the more work can be carried out. These opportunities enabled our youth workers to gain international experience, engage in knowledge sharing and return home inspired with new tools and practices. In Malta alone, the Erasmus Plus Youth Field recorded 2,986 participants in learning mobility activities across 2023 and 2024, supported by a remarkable 390 youth organizations. This represents not only strong engagement, but also deep-rooted institutional participation that will carry this work forward. The European Solidarity Corps has equally left its mark through high-quality volunteering and solidarity projects. It has brought the values of democracy, cohesion, and active citizenship to life for young people. It has also aligned closely with Malta's national volunteering policy 2020-2025, especially in promoting good governance, inclusion and relevance in volunteering initiatives. These programs are more than numbers. They are stories of transformation, of young people finding their voice, of youth workers finding recognition, of organizations building bridges across borders. This convention was an opportunity to reflect on how these initiatives feed directly into broader national and European strategies, from the European Youth Strategy 2019-2027 to the European Youth Work Agenda to our own Malta Strategy 2050. There has been a consistent call to empower young people, not just as beneficiaries, but also as co-creators of the democratic and social fabric of our countries. Malta's Vision 2015 envisions a just, inclusive and resilient society. Youth work is a cornerstone in achieving this future. It is through strong youth participation and recognised youth work that we will realise the strategic goals of sustainable development, social cohesion and innovation. These past few days, we did more than exchange ideas. We built a European roadmap for youth work. Together we agreed on shared priorities, affirmed our commitment to quality standards and designed mechanisms for collaboration that will ensure the sustainability of youth work across Europe. The way for the future has been paved. A concrete plan to accelerate not just youth work, but also the recognition, resources and respect is so rightly deserved, has also been laid down. Being in the driving seat of the presidency of the Council of Europe, Malta is proud to have contributed meaningfully to this shared vision. Let me say it clearly. Even the smallest country can play a big role in shaping Europe's youth policy. Malta may be small in size, but through our commitment, through our leadership at this convention, and through the active participation of our institutions and young people in Erasmus Plus and ESC, we have proven that we can lead, we can inspire, and that a change can be accelerated. In closing, I wish to thank all our partners, the European Commission, the Council of Europe, the EU Council of Europe Youth Partnership, and our own national youth agency, Agencia Zazach, along with the EUPA, for their unwavering support. To all youth workers, volunteers and young people, your work matters. And this I say it also as a father of two youths. Your voice matters, and your future matters for you and also for us, that we have strived and will continue to strive to see that you even have a brighter future. Let's go forward with a renewed determination to build a Europe with no young person that is left behind. And as I step into this role, I want to make it clear that I am here to contribute in this discussion and to see that more funding is adequately given in order to strengthen these activities. I make myself available I will make myself available together with all those involved to listen, to collaborate and to support the efforts. This is a journey that we have to walk together. Let us do it for more success. Thank you.